Check 1 2. Are you here? Do you hear me? Do you hear me? Check 1 2. No worries. Okay. Adam is there?
Sve ok, tek u 10:15 smo na izjavama. Ugasio sam bio kameru. Jesam.
Welcome to Brands Hatch. Welcome to American Speedfest 11. This is a highlight of the EuroNASCAR calendar, a tradition for the community of American car enthusiasts. It's evolved from just another round of the championship to a true spectacular, whether you like meets, muscle, or indeed motorsport. That's a good part of it as well. Lots of music going on too. This is the place to be. They've got live music, they've got lots of entertainment, they have demonstrations from historic NASCARs, but of course, most importantly, they have the racing from the EuroNASCARs. And before we can go racing, we need to go qualifying, and that's what we're going to do here this morning. Both EuroNASCAR Pro and EuroNASCAR 2 about to go racing, or at least go on track for the first time on the Saturday with their respective qualifying and Super Pole sessions. Of course, this circuit, the most compact of the road courses that we go to, a mere 1.2 miles in length. It's no longer the shortest circuit on the calendar, thank you Ven Ray, but it is certainly the smallest of the road courses. If you've been keeping up with the EuroNASCAR social media at all over the last few days, you might have seen Ryan Vargas call this place Martinsville with a couple of right-hand turns. Now, I don't remember the gap between turn 1 and 2 at Martinsville dropping a couple of stories, but I do definitely see his point. This circuit is a bull ring, quite unlike anything else. The atmosphere when EuroNASCAR comes to town is quite unlike anything else we see here in the UK at Brands Hatch, or indeed any MSV racing circuit. I'm glad to say, though, that was always joining me in the commentary box for this one as the crowds begin to arrive and are probably currently still picking their way through the various food stalls on offer, as well as some of the American car clubs. I'm delighted to say that Andre Vigold isn't at the food stalls. I believe he's already with me. Andre, how are you doing?
Thank you so much, Adam. Yes, I'm already here and I'm feeling great. We're back in the UK, one of the most popular events on the schedule, the American Speedfest, a very interesting event since many, many years, with a lot of people coming to the track at a fabulous Indy circuit that is so demanding. There's no real straight way to go. You always have to turn the car, and I think the thing that Ryan Vargas told us already, that it's kind of a Martinsville road course with right turns and a roller coaster going up and down. I think that fits, because this is a track, yeah, you could say made for EuroNASCAR cars. So I'm really looking forward to this event and qualifying. And Adam, we have a special format for this qualifying, right?
Indeed, yes, of course. I've already highlighted the fact that the circuit is the shortest of our road courses, and that does mean that we do things a little bit differently. It's almost a bit Monaco Formula 2, if you're familiar with that format. The qualifying will be done in groups, so we'll have a 10-minute session at 9 o'clock in 5 minutes time for Pro Group 1, EuroNASCAR Pro Group 1, so the Group 1 cars will be out there first, and then a second group of EuroNASCAR Pro cars will go out for a 10-minute session immediately thereafter. The times from those two 10-minute sessions will be combined into one order, and then the overall top 10 at the conclusion of Group 1 and Group 2 will go into Super Pole as we are used to. And then, of course, with the qualifying session EuroNASCAR 2, it's Group 1 and Group 2, and just simply the order at the end of that 20 minutes of running those two groups doing 10 minutes each. That will be the grid for that one. So it's a little bit different. We've split the grid in half for qualifying, and fortunately the British weather isn't seemingly doing British weather things at the moment. By that I mean, I don't think there's any risk of Group 2 going out and finding rain where Group 1 found dry. But it's going to be interesting to see whether there's any correlation between maybe being out later and going faster. The temperature still very much building into the Kentish tarmac at this time of morning, and maybe the Group 2 drivers might find some slightly more favourable conditions out there.
Yeah, definitely. The truck will evolve over the qualifying session. So maybe in Group 2 we have a little faster track, but you never know how the conditions will be with the temperatures difference when the sun is coming out or when we have some clouds. But you're right. I looked at the radar and also looked into the sky here in the UK. There seems no risk of rain. So everything's fine on that side. And here we have one of the local heroes, Jack Davidson, he was really fast in EuroNASCAR 2 free practice on Friday. So the Lux Motorsport guys, they found the grips, but I think they have an advantage here because they know the track, of course, really well. They did a lot of racing here in other classes. So Jack Davidson, definitely one of the drivers to take a look on. A very nice guy, also having a lot of activities here around the paddock at the American Speed Fest. So he's one of the guys we should look for, and he's racing in both divisions, so pulling double duty. Really looking forward to see the pink machine on the track.
Did I hear talk about a sim from GT Omega? Is that
Yes.
something I've made up? Yeah? No?
Yeah,
it's
they're
there?
here.
Good. Have you had a go?
So yeah,
Have you had a
there are
good-
there are some sim
I was just
racing
asking if
activities.
you've had a go.
No, not yet. I wanted to explain what's going on. So they have some simulators there, and my idea is, hopefully we get some time. I'm going to do a interview race with Jack Davidson later on, but we have to check if we can really make it happen. But if, then I try to distract him so much to win that race.
Gosh, that sounds like a assault on the senses, probing questions and wheel-to-wheel racing. Goodness me. Okay, we'll see. We'll see if that one happens. Yeah, a minute and 15 seconds until the cars fire off onto the fast lane and we go racing for this qualifying session. Lovely looking conditions this morning. Certainly not baking warm as it can sometimes be in June, but it's also not the worst weather we could have for the early stages of Speedfest. It seems to grow every year, and that's not just because of the popularity of EuroNASCAR. EuroNASCAR certainly is gaining more and more of a foothold and a reputation in Europe, but in the UK more specifically, but also MSV themselves, the owners of Brands Hatch, really do seem to put a lot into making this event special. There's your Double V Racing car. That's Max Maserati's car. That is going to be an interesting one this weekend. Another one of the local drivers to watch out for, of course. Maserati has been racing in the UK variously since 2017. Has been moving into EuroNASCAR in recent times. The green flag is waving for the first time this weekend, so we are just about to go racing, or at least go qualifying as the green flag waves. The marshals are ready on their post. The fans are getting into position, but still very much flowing into the Brands Hatch grounds this morning. But the cars are here, the drivers are here, and we are going for the first of these qualifying sessions. So who have we got out there for EuroNASCAR Pro Group 1? Blake Amolan, Mura, Davidson, Riccardo Romagnoli, Victor Neumann, French flag driver who also has a lot of experience here at Brands Hatch, Fabrizio Armetta, Nick Strickler, Thomas Dombrowski, Max Maserati, Dario Casso, Vladimir Osiortzis and Frederick Perrier are out there for this one then. And on the timing screen, the clock is actually ticking down from 25 minutes. It will be two 10-minute sessions in effect between these two sessions, these two groups. It will eventually be all, of course, combined into one quali session, and there's a statement of intent there. Davidson, one of the first drivers in that queue, but it's Blake Amolan that's actually setting the benchmark firstly. He's at the front of the queue. as they go out there and go out onto the circuit. Of course, this being a 1.2 mile circuit, it might take a couple of laps to really bed the tyres in. It's a very short amount of time to get some heat into the carcass of that Hoosier tyre. If you're unfamiliar with the format of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, the tyres have to do qualifying. They have to do, if you get through, Super Pole and both of the races in both classes. So that is something of a challenge. Of course, there is something of a bright side to the format here as well for our drivers. Even though often you don't see them pounding around the circuit for the full length of qualifying, with the group format there is only 10 minutes of qualifying. So a few less laps, potentially a few less miles put on these Hoosier tyres in quali than normal for some. You ride with Blake Molan then. The benchmark though has been set from further back. Fabrizio Armetta, a 53.274 is the early benchmark. We'll see how that is chipped away in the next 8 or so minutes. 8 minutes and 20 seconds left on the Group 1 time. It's not a lot of time to find your footing and find your speed. And we see the 48 car, Nicholas Strickler, the American racer, of course, one of two Americans, one of two California natives, actually. Ryan Vargas on his debut in the US as well. We were talking about his Martinsville comparison earlier. It's Davidson that goes top this time by a 50.794. I suspect there might be a couple of more tenths in the circuit yet. It's been really impressive though this year. It's been one of the shocks of the season for me. Both Armetta and Romagnoli, the two Club Motorsport drivers. Andre, it seems that they found something this year between their ever-growing experience, their familiarity with the car, and maybe just a little edge they've unlocked somewhere. That the Club Motorsport seem to be more competitive than ever before.
Yes, definitely. I know. So Armetta in the past was always here and then very fast. He found something here and then, but this time they made it happen to find the consistency, and I think that's the most important thing, to be consistent in your NASCAR. Motorsport did a really good job in winter to prepare not only the cars but also to improve the driver skills, so they are part of the front every time, not only in the trophies but also with Armetta in the overall standings. So they did the right thing to find the consistency and not only the peak pace for one track or for another track. So they are really evolving and developing into a decent team in EuroNASCAR, and it's really good to see that those teams that are experienced already find the grips with the setups of the car to climb up the ranks inside the EuroNASCAR Pro Championship. And we really have to take a look what Armetta is doing. This time he's in Group 2. By the way, the first group is the lower half of the championship standings, so we are divided the groups by championship standing points. So the front runners, the championship leaders, they are coming in group number 2, but Armetta is one we have to take a look at because he's really, really fast at all tracks at the moment in EuroNASCAR Pro. It's really nice to see a team evolving like this.
Indeed, that much is for sure. It's also been great to see Ken Komura back in the paddock this weekend. Wasn't with us in Vallelunga, but of course did join us for the season opener in Valencia. Now he's back for Brands Hatch, the Japanese racer in the Japanese 24 entry, the number 74 car. 5.5 minutes of this session left to go then, and we have broken into the 40s. A 49.529 is your current benchmark, and that benchmark once again belongs to Jack Davidson. Saloon car racing experience here in the UK, has done a good amount of running here at Brands Hatch, and that is showing once again. Of course, was involved in one of the bigger accidents of the year last year here at Brands Hatch, and we'll be hoping to have a cleaner run of it this weekend. Max Maserati, still a very new name, of course, the EuroNASCAR paddock, but not new to Brands Hatch. After debuting in Renault Clios back in 2017, he did 2 seasons of Formula Ford, and this circuit is very much the spiritual home of Formula Ford. Then did 3 seasons of GB3 and GB4 racing, scored podiums in both of those classes and finished 3rd in the 2022 GB4 standing. So he's kind of moving over after dabbling in saloon cars, then focusing on single-seaters. He's now moving into the world of EuroNASCAR, into the world of these unique stock car machines. And with 4 minutes and 10 seconds left to go, it is he in second place, just 4 thousandths of a second off Jack Davidson. The Brits are coming to the fore here at Brands Hatch at this stage in the Group 1 qualifying. It's going to be very intriguing to see how fast or how far up some of these quicker Group 1 drivers from the lower half of the points table are relative to Group 2, especially Davidson and Maserati. It's going to be telling to see how much local experience counts versus season form thus far.
I take a look at the time, 49.4. This is about 6/10 of the pace we had yesterday in free practice. Vittorio Guirelli topped the standings and he was the only one going into the 48s. So there's still a little bit time to improve. And now we have Vladimir Tsortis going to the top, I think, with a 49.244. So we're getting closer to the best times from yesterday. But it's possible to go into the 48s. And when I compare it to other series, I think the EuroNASCAR cars, and look at those cars, they are almost as fast as top-tier GT cars here at the Indy circuit of Brands Hatch. So this shows how good those cars are handling at this little but very demanding and challenging track in the UK. By the way, Adam, it's one of my favorite places. Brands Hatch, for years, one of the best trips that I have all year long, because I also love the enthusiasm the UK fans have. I always tell people when I'm back in Germany, what do you think about Brands Hatch? I say they even would come if we race with some remote control race car toys or something. You can even go with a bobby car or something like this, and still the UK fans would come to the track and enjoy the racing. So heads up for everybody coming to the track. The UK fans are just amazing.
We're a special breed, for the better or for the worse.
For
sure. Vladimir Siorts is going faster again, a 49.188. Vladdy, I think, will take it somewhat personally that he's in Group 1 here, given how the groups are formed. A sign that the season hasn't got off to the best of starts so far for him. He'll want to get a solid footing together at this stage of the season and try and build towards having a good number of points underneath him going into the all-important playoffs, the double point situation that we come to for the last 2 destinations of the season, the last 4 rounds of the season. Another one that we have to discuss, of course, as a local, despite being French by flag, is Victor Neumann. Now, he's done a lot of racing here at Brands Hatch. I'm almost certain I've commentated on him here at Brands Hatch before. No, I've done so at Donington and possibly Snetterton as well. Victor has done a lot of racing here in the UK. He's currently running in the top 5 in this Group 1 session. That looks like he's backing off now, so that last flying lap was all she wrote. Currently 6th fastest on a 49.738. He's just been demoted by Thomas Dombrowski, who is moving up the order. Vladimir Siortis on a 49.188 hasn't been disturbed or beaten for several minutes now. Looks like Siortis might be the benchmark for the Group 2 drivers unless Davidson can find something. Blake Molan has also gone faster. He's now 3rd fastest out there on a 49.531. And we'll see how that one goes. So 12 cars have taken to the circuit in this session, and there's only 10 seconds left to improve. I'm not sure any improvements are forthcoming, though. Of course, we have Vladi Siortis sharing with Claudio Remeggio Capelli this number 1 car this weekend. The number 5 is not here for the Alex Caffey Academy Motorsport stable, so these two are sharing. And everybody now making their way into the pits, and moreover, I think everybody's times are now solidified. So let's see how many drivers of that 12 make it into the Super Pole top 10. It's Siortzis who leads ahead of Davidson, Blake Hemolen, Maserati and Dombrovski after the Group 1 session, but in just a couple of minutes the Group 2 cars are going to head out onto the circuit. And of course, as you alluded to, Andre, these are the championship contenders. These are the drivers that have made their mark on the season so far, and really no one has made more of a mark this year than Vittorio Garelli. Garelli has been rapid so far this season, and as you said earlier on, only driver to get into the 48s on Friday. He's looked at one with his new steed, the number 24 PK Car Sport car. Of course, we have the likes of Gianmarco Ercoli there, ready to take his 100th start in EuroNASCAR. There are a lot of strong contenders, but right now you'd have to be a very brave gambler to put money on anything other than the 24 car.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a quite different situation right now with the group qualifying. You're sitting relaxed in the box. You see the benchmark set by Sorges with a 49.188. But now you head to the track and you only have 10 minutes. So you cannot afford any mistakes. We saw already some of the laps in Group 1 disallowed by race control because of track limit violations. So this is also a point. I think Graham Hill Bend, that's the one where you can lose a lap by going off track. And now you have to execute. You know, you cannot afford any mistake. There's no room for any misjudgments in this 10-minute Group 2 qualifying. So even Girelli or Ercoli, who are incredibly fast, they have to nail it. And this is the thing in this group qualifying to get into Super Pole. I think the top 5 of Group 5 may have a chance to join in Super Pole with a 49.658 by Dombrowski, the lowest time of the top 5. So I already noted some of them, so we can compare to Group 1. But Sorges and Davidson, the best guys, the best drivers in Group 1, may have a chance to go to Super Pole. So we have to take a look how the track evolves, if it's getting faster, if they find more grip. So it's going to be very interesting. In 40 seconds time, we're going to start the next qualifying session, and Girelli, Ercoli and all the other big names, they're a little bit more under pressure than usual when they are just flowing around the track. Now they know exactly where the benchmark is, and I think this is a completely different situation than normal.
One of our drivers who's brand new to the Brands Hatch circuit kind of said to me, we're chatting, and I said that I spent a lot of my childhood here at Brands Hatch. I was at one time a season pass holder here in Kent, and he says, go on then, give me some local knowledge. And my words on Graham Hill Bend were where track limit penalties lurk in plain sight. That's never been more true than in recent years with some of the changes to the track limit rules here in the UK. And it's very easy. It really does tempt you because there's quite a lot of, I believe what they actually called Vallelunga style curbing when they installed it several years ago. And that means that there's a lot of traction to be found on the beyond the white line of the corner, but you can't go and use all of it, otherwise you will end up with lap time deletions, or indeed in the race potentially time penalties. So a lot of things to consider on that front. We are now running then with the Group 2 cars. We are underway. It looked like Paul Giffreau, I think, that was the first one released out of the pit lane. Everyone is now running. Of course, Giffreau running for RDV competition. They are now running 2 cars. We did see the 16 car on screen a little bit ago with Frederic Perrier getting out of it. I must say I love that car purely because it's very Roush racing, between the number 16 font, between the fact that it is one of our Ford Mustang bodied cars. That is a very nostalgic look as the 24 of Girelli crosses the line. Speaking of NASCAR Cup Series nostalgia, I'm sure we all recognise that 24 from somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. It was even more close to the original Jeff Gordon paint scheme when Anthony Kumpen was racing the car a few years ago. It was almost the same paint scheme like Gordon had. So we have a lot of NASCAR fans also in the paddock. The drivers, they watch the US NASCAR races. They have friends over there. A lot of EuroNASCAR drivers even made it to the other side of the Atlantic once in their career, or even several times, to race in the National Series or in the ARCA Series or in lower tier series in the US. So EuroNASCAR and the US NASCAR, there's a bridge between it. So we had a lot of people coming from the US like Ryan Vargas, but also Bobby Labonte, Myatt Snyder, and several others, also Jeffrey Earnhardt in the past here at Brands Hatch. So it's really cool to see the exchange between the US NASCAR and the European NASCAR, that we're really one world, one brand, one racing community. And it's really cool to see also some of those iconic paint scheme being, let's say, new interpreted here in EuroNASCAR, like Anthony Kumpen with PKK Sport, or Girelli now racing the car, or the 16, I'd say Greg Biffle-like car.
Yes, that's it. Biffle, definitely the Biffle. Yes, I think he used to run at one time the 6 in Cup and the 16 in what was the Busch Series, if I remember rightly. It's so interesting to see how the various different international expansion series of NASCAR compare. Of course, Ryan Vargas will talk your ear off about that. The different cars in the Mexico Series, the Brazil Series, the Canada Series. All of the US tiers, of course, and indeed here at EuroNASCAR. Thomas Tuffel there, very wide coming through the Exeter Paddock Hill bend. He's going to be careful about that because of the aforementioned track limits issues. You really can't stray over that white line too often, especially in racing conditions. We have had the early laps coming in then, and no one is yet to penetrate the top 5 from Group 1, but of course they are still getting heat cycle into the tyres, and as I say that, Paul Giffro goes second fastest in the combined rankings of 49.346, and we're going to see more and more of the top 10 occupied by these Group 2 drivers as this session goes on. Girelli goes fourth fastest on a 49.384. This is Liam Hazeman's. He just crosses the line to go 12th in the combined rankings, but it's changing thick and fast here. Erkely also going to 9th fastest, of course. He's a former king of Brands Hatch, isn't he? And of course, I've alluded to it in this broadcast already, he's right on the verge of that 100th start in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, of course, at the circuit where he dipped his toes into this series for the first time.
Yeah, and we have a new leader, a new provisional pole sitter with Paul Giffro, a 49.047. So the number 3 first place, and right when I say it, we have Girelli in first place, 49.026. So Giffro and Girelli separated by just 0.021 seconds right now. So it's going to be a tough battle for pole position here, or for the, let's not say pole position, we have the Super Bowl going on, but to get a decent starting position in Super Bowl, because of course Girelli, if he stays in first position after this, he has the clean track in front of him when we head into Super Bowl. So the drivers are fighting for those top 10 positions, and we have Girelli, Giffro, Sortis, Ercoli and Davidson at the moment in the top 5, followed by Dubek, Hazemans, Downhauer, Blake Molan and Maserati completing the top 10. And I think in the last 4.5 minutes, we're going to have more movement in the field, as big names like Luca Lasser or Thomas Carzonis are still not inside of the top 10, and Thomas Toffel now moving up to 5th place.
Yeah, Toffel is making his way through the order. He's been searingly impressive in both EuroNASCAR Pro and EuroNASCAR 2 so far. There's the 54 car on the circuit, of course. That is Gianmarco Ercoli. He's second at the moment. He's just moved up to second with a 48.998. We're into the 48s with Giuffro, who's just gone top, a 48.851. Girelli a 48.945. Ercoli a 48.998. Ooh, like the Ducati. Where's Ryan Vargas at the moment then? We did just see him on screen in the critical path security Camaro. He's 17th for the time being, our second of the two Americans on the grid. He seemed confident coming out of free practice that they'd found a little something in FP2. Let's see if he can find some more time in the remaining 3.5 minutes of the session. Luca Lasser right up there as well, 5th fastest at the moment for the Speedhouse team boss and Speedhouse lead driver. Dufro, I think, is happy with his work, Andre. 3 minutes and 10 seconds left to go. He's in the pit lane. He said, I think that's all I've got, boys. I'll see you in Super Bowl.
I mean, he's in first place at the moment. He got past Girelli with a 48.851, and I think if you're in the 48s, you have a spot in Super Bowl. So save the tires. Do not get more laps on the tires. Go to pit lane and wait for Super Bowl. You reserve those Hoosier tires for the next session. Girelli, Martin Dubek, John Marco Ercoli, and Luca Lasser. But
I think we might be having connection issues with you there, Andre, at least on my end. You're breaking up quite a bit. Just to say, we're talking about how many Group 1, Group 2 drivers would make the transfer over to Super Bowl. Well, at the moment, the answer is 1, and that's Vladimiros Siortsis in 7th place. All of the other drivers that competed in Group 1 have now been pushed out of the top 10. We've still got 2 minutes left to go as well, so this could change, and Siortsis' time is now only good enough for 8th. Girelli has also come into pit lane, so he's decided that he has done enough. Martin Dubek is going fast, though. There's the number 7 car. He's just crossed the line for a 48.970 as well, so Dubek is on the move. Dufro, Girelli and Ercoli are all into pit lane. Lasser and Dubek still pounding in the laps. Hazemans has just moved into the top 10 to go 6th fastest in the number 50. Hendricks Motorsport entry. Downhauer in the 99 for promotion is 7th. Siortsis, Tefel, Del So rounding out the top 10 that we currently have out there on the circuit. Who could improve? Well, most of the positions from 11th down are held by drivers that were in Group 1. So the combined session times adding a bit of a complicated layer there. But Chrysonis, who's 11th fastest, he could still improve. He's still out there. Vargas is now up to 13th. So if he finds a little bit more time on his last flying laps, he may yet be able to make it as well. But he's got just 40 seconds to find a little bit more time, and as this session winds down, there's also the increased possibility of tripping over a slower car. In fact, there is Vargas turning into Surtees and McLaren at the moment. There was a big pack of cars just ahead of him and Ulysse Del So. Del So, who's 8th fastest and looking to shore up his spot in Super Bowl. He's already in, though, 8th fastest. What about Vargas? Is Vargas fast enough on his final lap across the line? It's not quite enough, a 49.563. Although, actually, he did cross the line before the checkered flag came out. So I think he does have one more by the books. So let's see if he is indeed on one last flying lap. It very much looks like Vargas is on one more flying lap. What about Thomas Chrysonis? He's just crossed the line to complete his final lap of the session, and it's only good enough for 11th place for Chrysonis, so he just misses out on the Super Bowl session. It's Giffro, Girelli, Dubek, Ercoli, Lasser, your top 5. They're all comfortable. They're all in Super Bowl, and in fact, Lasser demoted to 6th by Liam Hazemans. So Lasser down to 6th, but that's fine. He'll make it into Super Bowl. Downhauer 7th, Del So 8th. Siortsis, of course, the only Group 1 driver to stay the course. He's 9th fastest. He just about claims his spot in Super Bowl. And now everyone has crossed the line to complete their final lap. Thomas Tefel is the final driver to make the cut. Chrysonis, Davidson, Vargas, Blakemolen, Max Maserati, Lanza, Dombrovski, Neumann, Romagnoli, Armetta, Strickler, Mura, Casso, and Perrier, the 24, completing the 24-car order. And those bottom 14 will take no further part in the EuroNASCAR Pro qualifying process. They've all shored up their grid positions. For the likes of Chrysonis, Davidson, Vargas, of course, they are not too far away from that top 10 when we go racing. But the question now is, what order will that top 10 be in? It's now going to be a matter of just a couple of laps to determine the order. Let's see what we can do now. So then, the session is complete. We're well into the 48s. We'll try and go back to Andre now. 4 cars under that 49-second barrier. Of course, the question now is, will they have long enough to get heat back into the tyres to get those kind of times back in there again? Okay, I don't think that Andre is with us, but we are now going to move on to Superpole. Superpole format has just been declared on the TSL timing system, but it is an outlap and then 2 flying laps for these drivers. And of course, it's Paul Giffreau who has the clean air for this session. So Giffreau will be the first one in the queue as the 10 cars go out for Superpole. They've got 2 bites of the cherry, 2 flying laps. But the thing is, as we know, it takes a couple of laps to get heat into these tyres. We've seen that already in both of the group sessions. It was not optimal lap time until about 3 or 4 laps in, so it's going to be a matter of who's the most audacious on their outlap in terms of getting heat into the tyres. But it's also a question of who wants to sacrifice their tyres, because again, these are the tyres they need to use in the races later on. Some good work as always from our EuroNASCAR media team. The fastest qualifying lap ever here, I can confirm, thanks to Razor from the EuroNASCAR team. A 48.232 from Frédéric Gabillon, who is the only current EuroNASCAR 100 Club member. That's 100 starts. But there's something we will see Gianmarco Ercoli cross the threshold of later on this weekend when we go racing. There's Vittorio Gorelli, though, the 24 car. And they are now queuing up in that order for the Superpole session. The top 10 order from that qualifying session is the order they line up in for this Superpole. It will be 2 laps, 2 flying laps after the outlap. Not long at all to get heat into the tyres, given it's a 1.2 mile circuit here at the Brands Hatch Indy. The tyres will have already started to cool quite significantly. It doesn't take more than a minute or 2 for the heat to start to completely leave these racing tyres, especially as it's a fairly windy day here in the UK. You can see that on the flags there between the 50 car and the front fender of the car behind it. Of course, the 50 car being shared between Hasemans and Jill Linster, who has been very impressive this year in EuroNASCAR too. I think Hasemans is wanting to really try and stamp his authority on not just the junior trophy, but also to really highlight himself as a championship contender. He could do with podium visits and race wins this weekend. The green flag flies, and we're back underway. 5 minutes on the clock, but the important thing is an outlap and then 2 flyers to determine who is going to be our pole sitter for Speedfest. Of course, there's a race today, there's a race this afternoon for EuroNASCAR Pro, and then another race on the Sunday, and the grid for Sunday is determined by the fastest in-race laps during race 1 of the weekend. So this is the only qualifying element of American Speedfest for the EuroNASCAR machines. There's the 24 machine. There's Vittorio Garelli. A lot of pressure on his shoulders, given we know how well that car has been prepared so far this season. When everyone knows the car underneath you is just that good, there is some pressure to use it appropriately. But of course, every circuit is different, and the favourites going into every weekend will change accordingly. Let's see if he's got the car underneath him this time at the Brands Hatch Indy circuit. Then Paul Giffreau, of course, is out there just ahead of him. But it's Garelli that we're keeping a watchful eye on right now. Through Graham Hill Bend, keeps it just within the white lines, at least on the left sides of each axle. Through Surtees and McLaren, now out of Clearways and Clark Curve. The corner with some rather cruel cambers. You really have to work at the wheel on that one. Paul Giffreau has crossed the line to set the benchmark, a 49.638. Garelli crosses the line. He does a 49.192. He's immediately on the pace. Dubek, a 49.239 just behind him. But Liam Hasemans sets a 49.178, immediately trumped by Luca Lasser on a 49.102. No one is quite in the 48s yet, but we're rapidly approaching that benchmark. Let's see who gets there first. Luca Lasser then, a 49.102 is the benchmark at the end of the first flying laps. Only 2 flying laps in this Super Pole session. Where is Paul Giffreau? Giffreau is going to be the first car across the line. What kind of time can he set on his second flying lap? It's good enough for Pole, at least provisionally, a 48.964. He's the new benchmark then. He's the first driver in Super Pole under 49 seconds, but he's trumped by Garelli. Garelli, a 48.837. Garelli crosses the line fastest. Is anyone going to go quicker than the PK Car Sport number 24? Vittorio Garelli with a 48.837. And I'm not seeing anyone likely to be faster right now. Everyone has crossed the line, and Garelli has taken it. Vittorio Garelli on a 48.837 has crossed the line. Fastest of all to win the pole position. The 24 car that you see on screen now, the PK Car Sport entry, is the fastest. Dubek also leapfrogged Giffreau. He will line up second on the grid. So we're going to have our EuroNASCAR Pro Championship leader alongside our EuroNASCAR 2 Championship leader on the front row of the grid. Dubek, of course, as he has done for many years now, double dipping in both championships. Paul Giffreau, third on the grid in the number 3 RDV competition car. He should be okay with that. Gianmarco Ercoli also on the second row in 4th. Lasser and Del So 5th and 6th. Liam Hasemans, I'm quite surprised based on the speed of that first lap. He improved, but only fractionally on the second one. He lines up 7th alongside Vladimiros Siotzis, Thomas Tefel and Tobias Downhauer rounding out the 10. Only one driver failed to improve on the second flying lap, and that was Downhauer. The top 9 cars all improved on the second time by. Well then, Super Pole is in the books. The EuroNASCAR Pro qualifying is in the books. And Vittorio Garelli is going to be our EuroNASCAR Pro pole sitter. There was a lap time deleted, unfortunately, for Liam Hasemans because of track limits. So Hasemans pushing the envelope a step too far in terms of the runoff area. course, in terms of junior trophy, Paul Giffreau, the first of the junior trophy runners on the grid, third fastest. Hazeman's also running junior trophy. Only one of our challenger trophy drivers got into the top 10, and that was Thomas Tuffel, and he is 9th fastest, so he will have the effective class pole there as well. The Swiss driver who really has come on leaps and bounds this year. I've been very impressed with his pace. Of course, we all knew he tested at Valencia during the pre-season, and that obviously gave him an edge for the circuit Ricardo Tormo. But what's becoming more and more clear is that seat time has given him a lot more pace generally and a lot more of an understanding of how to make this car work, and frankly, how to make four wheels work, because lest we forget, Thomas Tuffel from a motorcycle racing background. There you see the fans starting to set up their tents, starting to set up their car collections as well. Lots of car clubs come to the Speed Fest. It's a big talking point in American car clubs up and down the UK, I can confirm. I mean, enough of the Facebook groups to know. But we saw there Garelli walking down the pits with Andre Vigold. We will hear from them in just a few moments. And fortunately for these young fans, they don't have to wait too long for more action, as the Group 1, Group 2 format will repeat again with EuroNASCAR 2 in just a few moments. There is the famous Kentagon, the restaurant just behind Paddock Hill Bend, and just in front of the Kentagon this weekend is where we find our Victory Lane. The Victory Lane is in the public access areas, just to the left, just to the right actually of this shot that you see now. They'll go through the gates here where the camera is mounted basically, and they will then look out to the fans and celebrate the victory amongst them here at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. Andre Vigold, though, is with the fastest man in Brands Hatch this morning, Vittorio Garelli.
Thank you so much, Adam. Vittorio Garelli, another pole award in your hands, but it was really, really close last attempt and you nailed it, right?
Yeah, this track is like that. I mean, it's very short, so all the lap times are very close between the competitors. Yeah, it was a good lap, I have to say. I was pushing hard. We worked well yesterday, so we still can improve a bit, but I'm happy to take the third pole in a row. It's going well for now.
How was it for you to be in the car or waiting in the pit box watching Group 1, and then Sortis got the benchmark and okay, I have to hit that time to get into Super Pole?
Yeah, they divided the championship contenders in the same group. Otherwise, it's not fair, to have someone with warmer tires and someone with colder tires for the 2 lap run, So all the championship contenders were in Group 2. Yeah, but the first group is good to have a reference to see how the track is, and then we went out and we did the job.
All right, grazie mille. Thank you so much. Congratulations. See you later.
See you. Have fun, guys.
Back to you, Adam.
Great to hear from Vittorio Garelli, and having fun is very much the emphasis here at American Speed Fest. Lots of family-friendly activities. I believe we've got the passenger monster truck again, delivering rides to the fans. As you can see there, an ever-growing range of Americana appearing on Colin Chapman Way, the road just to the driver's left of the main straight here, the Brabham Straight, at the famous Brands Hatch circuit. You see there the cameraman atop the main building. I've stood up there on that scaffold myself before. It's very high indeed. It's also a great view of the circuit, but you're hard pressed to find a bad view of the Brands Hatch Indy circuit. It's a really impressive facility. I always sat here in Paddock Hill Bend Grandstand because I like to see as much of the circuit as possible when I attend these races. I was actually here for the first ever visit of EuroNASCAR here at Brands Hatch back in 2012. That was a DTM weekend actually, and the EuroNASCAR was on the support bill. It was the first time I'd heard of EuroNASCAR. It was still a very new concept at that time, and it has evolved significantly in the time since then. And someone else who was there, I believe, in 2012 at Brands Hatch was the French racer Alain Grand. Sorry, not Andre, Alain Grand. He is back in EuroNASCAR this weekend for the first time since Le Mans 2012, for the first time since the inaugural season of EuroNASCAR. Alain Grand is back in the championship, which is a really interesting story. He has previously shared a car with Paul Giffreau, funnily enough, in some GT racing. We'll talk a bit more about him when we see him on screen. The longest ever gap between EuroNASCAR appearances. There are the Team Blake-Molen cars, the 69 and the 72 car. Of course, the 72 car will be piloted by Mikael Blake-Molen. Martin Reynolds is here, I see, making his way into the main paddock in his iconic car, a Ford Mustang of a different variety. Lots of American-themed support races here this weekend. The actual racing timetable here at the American Speedfest is very generous as well, I must say. It is chock full of different racing, mostly V8 powered, mostly very loud, proud and very American in nature, and that's before you even get to the other activities around the circuit. It's developed into something of a country music festival as well. There's no shortage of things to do here. Music, muscle, meat, and then some motorsport as well if you fancy. So then, cars are going to roll in a minute. The group format will be identical here, so the back half of the EuroNASCAR 2 standings will be out there first. Then the EuroNASCAR 2 front runners will be out there in Group 2. The only difference here is no Super Pole, so there is just the 2 10-minute blasts for our drivers this time. You see there the number 90 car, that's Riala Viti, the Finnish racer. He'll be looking to build upon some impressive performances so far this year, and the same applies, of course, to Julian Ribberg, who has been really quite sensational so far within the rookie trophy element of the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series. He's had some very good outings thus far in 2024 within EuroNASCAR 2, and of course he's one of many drivers doing both EuroNASCAR 2 and EuroNASCAR Pro. The very same chassis that were out there a few moments ago, often in the hands of different drivers, are now back out there again then for the EuroNASCAR 2 qualifying session. These drivers in Group 1 will have 10 minutes to try and lay down the best time that they can. These are the drivers in the bottom half of the standings coming into this weekend in the EuroNASCAR 2 overall championship. Again, as with Sportsis earlier on, let's see how many of them can get into the top 10, how many of them can break into a good position. Nine minutes and change left on the clock. Expect the fast laps to come in from about 2 or 3 minutes away from now, with of course this 10-minute window and no limit on the number of tyres. 55 car there we saw on screen, of course, in the hands of Gordon Barnes. Now that's a story worth telling. Gordon Barnes, of course, now a multiple-time champion and indeed reigning champion in the EuroNASCAR Club Challenge, which is the regularity test element of EuroNASCAR, which takes place on Fridays. Effectively, you pick a benchmark time and you then try and lap as consistently close to it as possible. And Gordon Barnes, a master of racing consistency through that. He is at the wheel of the 55 car this weekend. He did this last year as well. I think this is kind of his annual pilgrimage into wheel-to-wheel racing in EuroNASCAR. The British driver, the multiple-time champion in the Club Challenge. I'd really like to see him try his hand at a full season of EuroNASCAR racing somewhere down the line. So then, early laps coming in, and already some wheel-to-wheel action as Chrysonis goes past Riala there. Of course, Chrysonis had one of his strongest weekends at Vallelunga. Had some good racing in the Marco Stipp Motorsport number 46 car. It's Mura on top after the first flying laps, a 51.841 for Kenko Mura. Melvin de Groot on a 52.138 is second fastest. But of course we know those times are immaterial. We expect to go well under the 50-second benchmark. And indeed Melvin is already into a 50.6, but we can expect 49s, maybe even 48s before the end of the session. Claudio Remeggio Capelli across the line, second fastest at this early stage of the Group 1 session. Again, another driver. Oh, as he goes too wide there at Paddock Hill Bend, that will be a scare. Much like his co-pilot actually in this Alex Cappy Academy Motorsport entry, it must be said that Claudio Remeggio Capelli will be disappointed to be in Group 1 here, with the session split down the middle between the top and bottom half of the standings. It's again an illustration that Capelli hasn't had the easiest run of things so far. You will recall, of course, that his car was effectively written off in Vallelunga in race 1. Unfortunately, a big collision putting paid to his weekend. Melvin de Groot also a driver who had his fair share of tribulation so far this season. The number 69 car shared between Melvin and Sebastian Bleekemolen had no luck at Valencia. The car just seemed to be involved in every incident within a half-mile radius of the car. So they are currently on the back foot, but of course there are drop scores to consider before the playoffs as well. So by no means are any of these drivers a little further down the standings out of the hunt for a title by the end of the year, but they do have to minimise the mistakes and minimise the risk almost at this stage of the year now, knowing that they've already had a weak weekend in the books. Riala across the line. Capelli, though, is fastest at the moment, a 49.711, so he's done another flying lap after that one that went awry at Paddock Hill Bend. So easy to get Paddock Hill wrong. Quite easy to get Druids wrong as well, and Riala certainly a bit wide there, just locking up the front right on turn-in. That just meant the car pushed wide, as if he had a pair of very sturdy hands pressing against the fender, telling him you're not hitting that apex, sunshine. Sardeja in the 11 car being pursued by the 48 of Nick Strickler. Strickler looking to the inside at Surtees there. It's qualifying, Nick. He's currently third fastest though, so a good time from Strickler on the board, a 50.196. Only two drivers currently sub 50 out there though. Let's see if anyone else can lay down a quicker time. We expect some of the faster drivers, the Dubecks, of course, of the world, the Jill Linsters and co, to be well up into the 49s, maybe even the 48s. So in order to be on the first couple of rows of the grid, certainly you're going to need a little bit more than a high 49, I would suggest. Strickler there, very, very, very sideways coming out of Druids Bend. You see there what I was talking about earlier on as well, the sheer amount of runoff at Graham Hill Bend. Yes, relative to a modern day Formula One circuit where there's enough tarmac to build a small commune on the outside of the corners, it is comparatively small, but it is enough for a full EuroNASCAR's width, and therefore you can stray wide and end up losing times because of track limits. So you have to be careful of that at Graham Hill. Also Paddock Hill Bend as well, as you can see there's just about a car's width there, and you have to stay within those white lines at least with 2 wheels. There's the 69 car. Melvin de Groot across the line. He goes second fastest at 49.841, but the benchmark is still Claudio Remeggio Capelli's 49.711. Claudio would love a podium this weekend. I know that he will have a particular affinity, I think, for American Speed Fest. Of course, the American Festival of Rome is his home race. We just went there. One to forget this year for him, I grant you. But the reason that I think he'll like Speedfest in particular is because Claudio Remeggio Capelli, if anyone is an honorary American, it's Capelli. He rides a Harley, he lives and breathes America, and there's a very good reason that he is a EuroNASCAR driver, and that's because this is as close as it gets to lining up on the stock car grids of the USA within European borders, and he really does love EuroNASCAR and all things American culture. Capelli has gone quicker again, a 49.629. Melvin de Groot also going quicker, a 49.734. We are starting to see the times move upward then. There is Alain Grand. We just saw him in front of Dominique Schack. Grand back in the series then, in the number 16 car. Again, credit my sources, Razor from EuroNASCAR. He says the last race for this man prior to Speedfest 2024, Le Mans 2012, which took place 11 years and 238 days ago, the longest gap between EuroNASCAR appearances in series history. Melvin de Groot going rally crossing here. No longer a rally cross circuit, Brands Hatch, but Melvin is quietly protesting that as he goes through the gravel trap coming out of Paddock Hill Bend. I've seen Raffaele Marciello do it here, so he's not in bad company. Look at that, properly committed through Surtees there was Kenko Miura. Let's see if the commitment and the sideways driving we saw there out of Clearways Clark translates to a quick lap time. Miura was giving it everything through those last few corners. What kind of time does he set? It's only a 50.343. He's still fourth fastest, so he's still got a good time out of the car, but not quite good enough yet for front row potentially. And again, once we see the faster drivers out in Group 2, I suspect that the front row will look very different. But for now, it's this man, Thomas Crusonis, who's fastest. He has set a 49.523. And as the time ticks down to 0, he is going into pit lane. Crusonis, the Greek racer, looks like he has set the benchmark. Unless anyone can find some more time on their final flyers, it's Crusonis that has laid down the gauntlet. Kenko Miura, however, coming across the line. Let's see if he has a better time in him. He doesn't improve. What about Capelli? He comes across the line and he goes top. And just before him, Melvin de Groot improved as well. It's a 49.495 for Claudio Remeggio Capelli. And I think, unless we have a surprise package coming out of the last couple of corners, that is going to be the fastest time of the Group 1. Claudio Remeggio Capelli with a 49.495. He was quicker than Melvin de Groot's final time by 6 thousandths of a second, 0.006. 49.495 for Capelli, 49.501 for the Dutchman. Chrysonis third fastest, also just a matter of hundredths away. Then it's Mura fourth, Strickler fifth, Rayala sixth, Sven van Leer in seventh, Dominic Schack in eighth, Reza Sardeha in ninth, Grand in 10th position, Barnes in 11th, and Casoli in 12th. But now the front runners in the EuroNASCAR 2 Championship will get the chance to lay down their lap times, and let's see if they're any quicker. Certainly, I think that Capelli, De Groot, Chrysonis, all there within 200ths of a second of each other, or within 300ths of a second of each other anyway. I think they could all be within a shot of a top 6 start come race time. Certainly Capelli and De Groot are well used to being up that high, and Chrysonis was fighting for top 5s last time out at the Vallelunga circuit. I would not be surprised if we see more than one of these Group 1 cars in the top 10 by the end of this qualifying session. The Group 2 qualifying is going to begin in just a few seconds here. We'll wait for the cars to fire up again in just a few moments. Let's see whether someone like, let's say, Jack Davidson can give the fans something to really talk about on the banks of Brands Hatch going into the EuroNASCAR 2 race this evening.
He's had the longest gap in the history of NASCAR Whelen Euro Series where he hasn't returned to the championship. So he's been away for 12 years, 71-year-old, and he's not doing a bad job out there. So well done to him to qualify for now in 10th position, but we'll see how he gets.
But lots of other front runners up there at the sharp end. Thomas de Vell is certainly one of them. He's gotten quicker and quicker in recent times, and he is now a very serious threat at the sharp end of the EuroNASCAR 2 order. Then, of course, there's the Hendricks Motorsport duo. Martin Dubeck and Jill Linster are always fast. There's Thomas Dombrowski as well. Let's see what he can do. Of course, a few drivers have the advantage compared to the earlier qualifying session, or rather they have an advantage because they were in the earlier qualifying session. They've done a few more flying laps this morning. Looks like we have some more cloud cover overhead than we had as we went live just before 9 o'clock this morning. We are about 30 seconds away from the cars being released. The Group 2 machines, the top half of the EuroNASCAR 2 standings, about to be released onto the circuit. Of course, it's a month of unique formats here in the NASCAR Whelen Euro Series, because in just a matter of a few weeks we are going to be at an oval for the first time since 2019 as we return to Raceway Venray in the Netherlands. That is going to be a very exciting prospect for all parties, but for now we focus on Brands Hatch and the second phase of this EuroNASCAR 2 qualifying session. Drivers released out onto the circuit then. And again, we're expecting 2 or 3 minutes worth of warm-up and build-up of temperature into these tyres before they unchain and try and find a little bit more speed. After the first 2 rounds of the season, it is Martin Dubeck that leads the EuroNASCAR 2 Championship. Of course, we saw him earlier on in EuroNASCAR Pro. He is looking rejuvenated in 2024. The pace is back for the 2021 EuroNASCAR 2 champion, and I fully expect him to be once again up at the sharp end There is the number 7 car just ahead of the sister Hendricks Motorsport machine, the 50 of Jill Linster, the Luxembourg-based driver. We also saw there the number 8 car. That, of course, is Mario Ercoli, younger brother to Jimmy, the defending EuroNASCAR Pro champion, of course, Gianmarco Ercoli, a little earlier on. So then, first quote-unquote flying laps ongoing, but of course, we won't see the quick times for a few moments just yet. That lays down an early benchmark. Jack Davidson was already crossed the line on his first flying lap, and he's already into the top 10, a 51.273. Again, the benchmark set from Group 2 is a 49.495, set by Claudio Remeggio Capelli. This is effectively the second phase of the EuroNASCAR 2 qualifying session, with Group 1 and Group 2 times combined together to form an overall grid. And I'll tell you what, Jack Davidson is looking racy in the early stages. A 49.781 on his second flying lap. That's good enough for 4th fastest. Now let's see if Dubek and Linster have good lap times in them as they come through Clearways and Clark. They power out of the corner past MSVHQ and onto the main straight. Let's take a look at the number 7 car's pace. Only good enough for 10th fastest between the two sessions right now, Dubek, and Linster was only 11th fastest on that time by as well. There's a lot of time for that to improve though. Jack Davidson though, in the pink Lux Motorsport machine, really is on it already, has netted himself a pole position time, potentially, as he turns in Paddock Hill Bend. Jack Davidson, a 49.388, has already beat anybody from the Group 1 session. Davidson, again with a few minutes of qualifying experience from earlier on in EuroNASCAR Pro, using that in EuroNASCAR 2, as well as his significant circuit knowledge. He is top already in this session as Julian Ribber turns in through Paddock Hill Bend. He's unlikely to be a contender, I think, for the first couple of rows of the grid. But his race pace is always fabulous, and I fully expect him to be right up there fighting perhaps for top 5s, maybe an overall podium. Jack Davidson has a puncture. We were just hyping him up and talking about how quick he had gone, but the 21 car has a flat Hoosier. Drama for Jack Davidson. Now the Lux Motorsport team have 5 minutes left. Will they try and get him back out there? And the other question is, will anybody be able to beat that lap time? The 49.388 still stands the fastest lap of the session. I know that Dubek has the potential to go quicker than that. We know that from the EuroNASCAR Pro session, but of course that was in different conditions. It's starting to cloud over here at Brands Hatch, but Patrick Schauber goes top. Patrick Schauber in the number 3 RDV competition machine has just gone fastest of anybody, a 49.201, and Thomas Tuffel has similarly improved to a 49.222. So already Davidson's chances of a front row start here on home turf have taken a knock. And it's not just the puncture, it's also the pace of his fellow drivers. Dubek and Linster both improved to 3rd and 4th fastest in the 49.3s. But it's Schauber, this man in the number 3 car that's currently setting the benchmark, albeit the man who's right there with him on the timing sheets is also right there with him on the circuit. Thomas Tuffel, a 49.222 last time by, and using the wheel tracks Patrick Schauber to his advantage. He goes top, but then immediately puts it in the gravel. Tefel just set a 49.194, and then the gravel knocks on his door. Back out onto the tarmac, but maybe a bridge too far. And Martin Dubek is right on the verge of the 48-second barrier. He's just gone fastest, a 49.011 for Dubek. He's right on the verge of the 48, so I had a feeling we'd see that out of at least one or two drivers in this EuroNASCAR 2 session. And sure enough, Dubek is right on the verge, a 49.011. A little over 1.5 tenths of a second up on Jill Linster at the moment, and while that's not a lot in most circumstances, here at Brands it's not a small margin. Dubek coming across the line again. Has he got a little more in the sleeve, in the back pocket? No, not quite. Linster does improve, a 49.151, but he's still off the pace of his teammate Dubek. Tefel third, Schauber fourth, and critically Jack Davidson is back out there. Davidson's back out there now with the punctured tyre replaced. Now, has he got time to get heat back into the tyres and start finding more lap time out there on the circuit? Davidson is back out there in the 21 car. Schauber has just gone second fastest yet again in the number 3 RDV competition car. I feel like this session could go one of many ways, any of many ways at this stage. Schauber second, Dubek first fastest at the moment. Here is Mario Erkeli, currently 10th fastest. Linster has improved to go second on a 49.078. Still Dubek, 49.011. That is the benchmark with 90 seconds of the session left to go. Davidson is on his first flying lap with the new tyre after that puncture. He's done his installation laps back on the tyre as Mario Erkeli gets seriously sideways coming out of Druids. Well held, young sir. 72 car across the line, that is Mikael Bleekemolen. He's only 20th fastest at the moment. So final minutes of the session, we really need to focus on the sharp end. Will anybody beat Dubek? 49.5 last time by for Jack Davidson, so not improving on his best of 49.388. Has he got that last couple of tenths in the back pocket to maybe secure a home front row? There is the 21. He's giving it everything. He'll be ruining that couple of minutes that he lost, but he's now laser focused in. Did he lose time through Surtees and McLaren there with that wild moment? He's got one more flying lap if this one fails. Bleekemolen and Reberg still both well outside the top 10. They're coming across the line, but there's Davidson on a 49.662 last time by. I'm not sure there's another improvement in that car, but he might well prove me wrong. The clock has just hit 0. This is the final lap of the session. Our current benchmark, Martin Dubek, is in the pit lane. He feels he's done everything he can do. Equally, I don't think Jill Linster is going to improve either. I think just about everybody who's been running all session has done about as much as they can do. But what about Davidson? Can he recover from the puncture to try and get onto the front row here at Brands Hatch with his friends, his family and his sponsors all here for Lux Motorsport? He crosses the line and it's not quite enough to improve. A 49.395 is the time, but that's still good enough to start 5th on the grid, and he can go podium hunting from there, that much is for sure. Martin Dubek, though, tops the session with a 49.011. Everyone has crossed the line now, and it's Dubek that has taken the session. He was in the pit lane before the clock hit 0, but he is the fastest man here at Brands Hatch in EuroNASCAR 2. We didn't quite hit those 48s. We got jolly close though. And Martin Dubek secures pole position, and Hendricks Motorsport once again secure a front row lockout as it's Dubek and Linster on the front row of the grid. Patrick Schauber for RDV competition lines up third. Thomas Duffel lining up fourth in the 34 car, and Jack Davidson will round out the top five in the Lux Motorsport number 21. Claudio Remigio Capelli in the number 1 car for Alex Caffey Academy Motorsport. He is 6th fastest. Melvin de Groot is 7th fastest in the number 69 car. Thomas Chrysonis 8th fastest in the Camaro from Marco Stipp Motorsport. Florian Richard and Thomas Dombrowski will round out the top 10 for EuroNASCAR 2. From there, it's Benedetti, Mario Ercoli, Victor Neumann, Julian Reberg, Simone Giussani, Kenko Mura, Nick Strickler, Royala in 18th, Van Leer, Mikael Blakemolen 20th, Dominic Schack 21st, Sardeja in 22nd place, Alain Grand in 23rd, Gordon Barnes and Ariana Casoli rounding out the 25 cars in the EuroNASCAR 2 order. 2 very exciting qualifying sessions. But if you're just looking at the point standings, 2 unsurprising pole sitters in EuroNASCAR Pro. It was Vittorio Gorelli on pole position, the championship leader in EuroNASCAR 2. It is indeed Martin Dubek who is the championship leader there, and he is also our pole sitter in EuroNASCAR 2. There you see the point standings in EuroNASCAR Pro. Gorelli with 7 points lead going into it, and there's Martin Dubek's lead, 24 points already at this early stage of the season, and both of their confidences and both of their momentum will be improved by pole position. Dubek will receive his pole reward in just a few minutes, just a few seconds even. But our 2 championship leaders are both starting from pole. Andre, I guess it's all gone to the script for them, hasn't it?
Thank you so much, Adam. It's getting really loud now. The Bernie V8, they are my enemy at this race weekend. I cannot do any interviews when those engines are roaring. Okay, let's try anyways. It was a really close qualifying session. Provisional pole position, switching all the times, but again, you're here. Pole position for the first race here on Saturday. How are you feeling?
It's really nice, almost 2 pole positions, so it's really nice feeling. Now we will see what happens. I hope no rain today, but in EuroNASCAR Pro I will start from P2 and another pole position in EuroNASCAR 2, so it's really nice feeling, and cross fingers, and we will see what happens during the race.
All right, thank you so much. Congratulations. Stay here for the photo. Back to you, Adam. I cannot hear anything here.
The good news is we can hear you a lot more than you can hear yourself, Andre. So that's the good news. The microphone is doing its job for you as much as it possibly can. The rumble of V8 Thunder is going to continue all through the morning here at Brands Hatch, but the next EuroNASCAR action will begin at 2 p.m. Central European Summer Time. That's 1 p.m. local time here at Brands Hatch. We will go racing with the EuroNASCAR pros at 1 o'clock, and then we will round out the day's action just after 5 Central European, therefore about 4:20 p.m. UK time with the EuroNASCAR 2 race. There you see all the relevant times on your screen. Make sure you join us if you're in the UK. I believe there are still some tickets on the gate. If not for today, then for Sunday. Make sure you join us so you don't miss a minute of the EuroNASCAR action this weekend. This is American Speedfest 11. The qualifying is over. Soon we go racing.